Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
The Dialed In Angling Podcast presented by OnX Fish, Arneson's Rocky Point Resort, Strike Master, and 13 Fishing. Well, welcome back to this week's podcast. This week we are on the shores of Lake Mille Lacs. We are at Nitti's Hunters Point Resort, a place that I spend a ton of time in. You know, over the last few weeks we've been here. We interviewed some anglers. There's been all sorts of different tournaments on Mille Lacs. Mille Lacs has been red hot. My two guests this week sitting next to me are Hunter Nitti and Isaac Lakich. Hey, welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. I know you guys do a ton of fishing. You've been fishing all over the planet, chasing big walleyes, hunting them down on forward-facing sonar. You know, Isaac, you've never been on the podcast before. I want to get to know you a little bit better. Hunter, we want to catch up with you because I know you've been all over the map fishing. You know, I've been following you as far as different tournaments, not just on Mille Lacs, but the NWT and all over the place, the MTT. So I want to catch up with you as well. Isaac, let's start with you. You know you've been out of Hunters this week, fishing Mille Lacs. What are your thoughts, bud?
Oh, this is one of my favorite fisheries in the country, mainly for the people. I love coming here, hanging with Hunter and all the boys and, just having a fun week breaking down this really unique and, sometimes difficult and challenging, but also super rewarding fishery.
Yeah, I always say it, and you can look back in history. Some of the best walleye anglers on the planet have their roots in Lake Mille Lacs.
Yep.
And if they didn't grow up here fishing, they spend a ton of time here.
Yep.
And it's because it's such a diverse, vast fishery, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can fish a lot of different ways. The fishing can change in an instant, right? We've got some storms moving in this week. I know you guys are getting ready for a derby coming up.
So excited.
Yeah. Always when tournament time comes, right? It blows 50 miles an hour and everything changes and then it's out the door. But as far as this week, Hunter, I know I bumped into you multiple days. You've been out here a lot with different tournaments. What kind of year are you having so far?
Yeah, no, it's been a great year, and we're back on Mille Lacs, and I couldn't be more excited. Home body of water, pretty much, and it's one of those times of years that we're here a lot, and we're here day after day, and we have a few more tournaments this year going on, and the fish are setting up the same way they kind of always have. Some are a little later. We're going out to different places all week, but now they're getting set up on the stuff that we want them to get set up on, and I think we're super excited about this tournament coming up. And it's been a fun year for sure, and I'm happy to be back at my home body of water.
Yeah, right on. I love coming into Hunters, not just talking to, different anglers that I know, and but it's other anglers that are coming to Mille Lacs for the first time. A lot of bass anglers, but a lot of different walleye anglers that are coming here where there's like falling in love with this lake. And what's cool about Hunters is you don't know who you're going to bump into, right? All this week when I bumped into Dan Quinn, Hunter. If you listen to the podcast a couple of weeks ago, that classic bass tournament that your dad and Tone were fishing, we got some sound bites from those guys. What tournaments or what fishing have you guys done this year where you're just like blown away either as far as size or, something changed? I know for me, last week I was talking about being up on Lake Winnipeg, and I am never not going to Lake Winnipeg in the summer again, just because of the sheer size. The fish that I saw on forward-facing sonar that were, 10 to 20 feet down, but only 3 feet down below the surface. And just the way they attack a bait, I threw Crush City plastics the entire time. I was just snapping plastics, and it didn't matter. You just had to swim it in front of their face.
And they ate it.
They ate. Everything ate. And because of that, that's the type of bite that I want to go back to. Is there any bites, Isaac or Hunter, that you guys have been on this year where you're just like, oh my God, we got to do that again, like real soon?
We've had a lot of grinders this year. It doesn't sound as fun as yours. I mean, Erie was fun. I mean, catching fish there is always a blast.
A lot of dirty water, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really like the Erie that we know, where you get fish and you get a bait above them, they come from 10 feet and come eat it. It was all out grinding. You worked your butt off, and
tough to get a bait in front of them, moving fish, like all that.
dirty water, and but you saw a lot of big ones. It was normal Erie. They were all still there. It was just a grinder to catch them and get a bait in front of them, and it was rough all the time, every day. No calm days. You get calm afternoons, and then you'd windmill them, but you can't bank on an afternoon bite.
Do you think, in that dirtier water that you almost have to bump them in the nose?
The dirtier it gets, the closer you got to get it. Basically whatever the visibility for what you can see with your baits, the zone that you have to hit with the fish. So, I mean, if you only got 5 inches, you got to get within 5 inches of their nose, or else they're just usually not going to feel it or see it. You'll see them sometimes. They'll like turn and they can almost feel it like on their lateral line go past them, but they'll like lose it right away, and then they won't keep up with it. So like all of a sudden, it actually sucks because you'll try sometimes to get it to a fish like 10 times and you haven't hit it right, and then all of a sudden you make that fish move, and now your bait's not there to get bit, and it's like so frustrating because now you got to try to do that again. And that's time for us. But Erie was cool. I mean, it was interesting there. Oahe was another fun one. I mean, he got his PB at Oahe, so that was pretty dope.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there was big fish there. The bite was grindy too, but there's monsters in that place.
Yeah,
so.
I was out there last year with Marcus Quam, in the fall.
Sure.
Same thing, trying to hunt down pigs. And we only had like half a day, so not
a lot of time.
Not a lot of time because we wanted to kill roosters.
I don't blame you.
We were supposed to be shooting a TV show, and I'm like, let's just keep killing roosters.
Right.
But anyway, when I was out there too, Oahe too, you see some of the megas and how fast they're moving in the current, and you're like, casting, and trying to get in front of those fish. But that's another place where you can put a teener. I obviously saw your pick on target walleye. Catching those big giants out there.
Yeah.
Pretty special fishery, right?
Oh, it's absolutely insane. And, we sit back over here in Minnesota and run around on these other lakes, and you catch 31 inches and 32 inches. But and they're catching 31s and 32s out there that are teeners. And you're like, you don't even understand it.
They're built differently.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm home water for me is Green Bay, and that place has got 30s, 31s, but they're just not built like Oahe fish. And, those things are.
You're talking walleyes that are like 12 inches across the back.
These are post-spawn fish. We're not talking respawn. I mean, I had an 11-pound, 30-inch post spawner. That's a big post spawner. It's a heavy fish. Like that. I think the forage, all these places we've talked about, the thing I've noticed this year is the amount of bait and food around has made it, I think more difficult to trick them. In certain situations, it seems like that's definitely playing a role in getting, especially big ones to bite. And big ones, I think, are notoriously two very nocturnal fish. They bite very little windows, real big ones. So,
that's the one thing about forward-facing sonar that I've really learned to appreciate is the fact of these bite windows that occur, and it happens at different times of day. Sometimes it catches you by surprise, but me out there guiding or wherever, I'm just like, wow, all of a sudden, you hit that feeding window. I'm sure when you guys are fishing tournaments, you're pretty keyed in and dialed into those bite windows that you have. I know you brought up Green Bay. I've been out in Green Bay where it's like you throw at them, and then nothing, and all of a sudden, boom, they all decide to bite all at once, and then just as quickly as it happens, it can shut off.
Right back off.
And what are some of the craziest bite windows you guys have seen this year?
Oh man, I would say the craziest bite window I'm seeing right now is out on Mille Lacs. There's like a half hour going on, and you get to see it really well. And, you're casting that fish all day. They're not doing it. They're kind of doing it. And then all of a sudden you get a half hour window, and it's like, hit as many of them as you can right now. And then all it takes is casting at one of them. And you see how fired up it is. And it just clicks in your brain. Like, you got to go. You got to start casting at all of them right now.
I'm not going to bring up your bait of choice from Mille Lacs because I know you two are about to visit Derby. But let's go back to Green Bay because that's a lake and a fishery that I absolutely love. It's right up there with me when it comes to experiences that I've had on Lake Winnipeg. I fished the Rainy River as far as catching giants. Green Bay I fell in love with years ago. Obviously the rattle bait, the rip and wrap bite out there, pre forward facing sonar. As soon as the ice started going off the bay, I was in, right? And I was out there. One thing that I really haven't experienced is fishing the bay side, but then going over to the sturgeon bay side. I have a lot of friends that, fish both sides. I have a lot of friends that are like, they yell at me for leaving early because they're catching brown trout on jerk baits. And they're like, dude, the bite kind of kicks in after green bay slows down. What's kind of your Isaac's time frame when it comes to the bay in the spring? Because I know for me, like as soon as the ice goes out, if I'm there, I catch these big pre-spawners. If I miss it by a couple days, it's like, or if you have a weird, let's say early or late ice out, it kind of screws that thing up. What's kind of your ideal situation for either green bay or sturgeon bay, and which one would you choose first?
So for me, it's just based on the migration and the patterns of the fish. So what you're seeing there, that Oconto bite and, the lower bay bite is always good the earliest, right? It goes first. And then that sturgeon bay bite lasts into like May. Now you can get on them early in sturgeon bay, but a lot of times the ice doesn't go out over there as early as it does on the west shore. So I just chase them. I go from one side to the other and just kind of keep working my way north through a season. I really don't fish the lower bay a ton, but I'm trophy chasing. We're looking for a couple bites a day. A 10 fish day with me is a fun day because they're 25 plusers. You're not getting a lot of them, but I mean, the chances that big ones are there.
So my first trip out to Green Bay was with a bunch of Rapala guys, Bart Rosen from Rapala. There was a whole bunch of us that went. And they sort of talked us into it. We met Chris, who lives out there, and, just sort of like, okay, we got to make this an annual. Well, the first trip we went out there, we put 4 in the boat, over 12 pounds the first day.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I'm never not coming here.
Yeah. It's changed from that. Yes. I haven't seen that in a couple of years. We might be on a little bit of a down cycle right now with our big fish. There's a ton of 25 to 28s on the bay right now. A lot of 20 to 20 inch fish as well. We got some good year classes coming, but our big ones, we're in a little lull on that side of it for probably the next 3 years, 5 years based on, rough growth rates and stuff like that. But, that early spring bite, if you hit it right and you hit that right pot of big ones on the way in, is probably one of the most special bites you can get on. I mean, it's interesting. It's a very subtle way to work, those baits and stuff like that. And it makes it really fun.
I just remember like the first time we went, we're throwing rip and reps and there's big chunks of ice coming down.
Yep.
And like we could see it on side imaging. Look at all the fish underneath there. And we were like skipping docks with our rip and wraps and getting them underneath there and catching walleye.
Yep.
And that was the first time for me.
The ice is floating. That's the best pre-spawn bite you can possibly ask for. We put the boats in a split second. Like guys are breaking ice. They're cutting launches open. Every year they freaking taken chainsaw to pier. They cut holes, run water, and chainsaw. And they'll push 175 feet of ice out to get out. Like it's wild.
Well, what opened my eyes to that is then I went up to the Rainy River and same thing. Like those fish follow that ice flow. And the closer you can get to that ice pack,
overhead
the more and bigger fish
overhead cover. I mean, I don't know if they can sense it or if there's pressure difference in the water.
It's got to be, but it's amazing when you find.
You were sending me wasn't it the pictures that under the ice where they were like the ice shove went down and they were seeing them like way up on.
We got it where the ice got so soggy and that you could throw a jig and a crawler, a jig and a leech onto the ice and it would hit the ice. And if it went through, you got crushed instantly. But if it didn't go through, they would feel it hit the ice above them and swim right to the ice, right where your bait was.
No way.
And you were shaking your bait, trying to get it to fall through. You're like, please fall through, please fall through. And 50% of the time it did. And the minute it fell through, it got annihilated. Yeah. It was awesome.
That's wild. Yeah. And again, I talk about a lot of things on this podcast that I've learned from forward-facing sonar. If you didn't have that, even with side imaging, you realize there was fish under there. But to see them react in that manner, you just would never be able to see that ever.
It's taught us more about the fisheries across everywhere than we ever knew. Like, I mean, what these fish do. I mean, people used to think in the middle of summer they were gone. Like they just sunk into the mud or buried themselves in the rocks. And it's like, oh no, they're a foot under the surface out in the middle of the lake.
Just roaming, eating.
Yeah.
With every other fish.
Yeah.
The lake.
Yeah. Oh, the lake's just dead this summer. No, they're just out there somewhere. Like, so it's taught us a ton of stuff. it's cool watching them, man. Like we've gotten to the point now with practice where it's like, when we're looking at tournaments and stuff like that, like I'll watch a fish for a while without casting it just to see what they're doing. Like tournament day, it's like, oh, mark, cast. But like for practice, like I try to figure out, like, are they heading a certain direction or which way are they pointing? Like, what are they doing to try to get in front of them and try to stay in front of them? But that's, never easy. I mean, the wind switches and the currents change and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, you talk about Oahe, you talk about Green Bay, even, I got Lake Winnipeg. When I was up there, the current was wicked. Yeah. And it would change in an instant up there. It would be like flowing, out of the north, and then all of a sudden it would be flowing like back the other. Yeah. And so you're like trying to time your cast based on where you're seeing the fish, where you're seeing the tail wags.
Big water like and big current go hand in hand. That's a big thing on this big stuff.
I know in a few weeks, you guys are, after you leave here, you're heading up to Bay de Noc. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Same thing up there.
Yeah.
Hunting down bigs, dealing with current. It's probably similar to what you fish in Green Bay. Can you tell us a little bit about Bay de Noc?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. He's been there. He's done well there. So I've fished there a handful of times. I really haven't been up that far too crazy much.
It'll be really interesting with how many boats show up. It looks really big on a map, but it's not that big. And it's going to get a lot of pressure. And there's going to be a lot of boats and a lot of fish caught. There's going to be really, really, really big fish caught. This time of year, they're just there. They're in there. They're big. And everybody really knows what's going on. So it's gonna be really interesting who can fool them the whole time into eating.
Right. That's what I think it's gonna turn into, a little bit of some trash fishing. I mean, that's clear water up there. You're talking 15, 20, 25 feet of visibility sometimes. I mean, fishing that stuff, when you start putting 100 boats on them in a location that just doesn't see that local pressure ever. Like, I mean, Bay de Noc on a weekend when you're not there for a tournament might have 10 boats in it, 5, and you won't even see another guy all day, which makes it really cool. I mean, it's a destination place for sure. If people want to check out one of the coolest fisheries, best scenery, good town, good venue, like Bay de Noc's awesome.
When you drive through the UP, it's like the movie The Great Outdoors. And I know that was filmed in Wisconsin, but it literally looks like that. Like, come pet a dinosaur, play with the lion, and grab an ice cream cone. And fishing's great.
Yeah.
When you drive through the UP, it's like old timey, like resort
you're
towns.
You're doing like 55, 65 max on the 2-lane highway the whole way through, all the way till you come across the bridge on the other side and go into the lower Michigan. But yeah, it's Bay de Noc's cool. I've fished it in the fall. I've been up there a bunch in November and December when we're chasing a teener, but this time of year, I don't know if I've ever been there in June, to be 100% honest.
Yeah, for me, it's just been stopping there on my way back from something, and it's always a place that I'm like, all right, I got to make time, leave early, and make an hour stop. And I've rolled into the launch, and people are like, what are you guys doing here? And we're like, oh, we're just going to go catch a 30-inch real quick, and then we're going to keep heading home. And they're like, really? And then it usually takes about a half hour. You jack a 28, and boom, you get a 30. You're like, oh, there we go.
Yeah,
it's an awesome fish.
There's some big fish up there.
Big fish. Yeah, it's awesome.
I love the Great Lakes for those opportunities. I know you guys fish up on Lake Superior, same thing. You just fished a tournament up there, the MTT, and those big fish potentials. It just seems like people knew about it. Maybe they kept it more quiet, or maybe just a lot of those big fish were a lot more rare prior to forward-facing sonar, but it just, to me now, it seems like, there's so many Great Lake spots on my hit list now that I want to go to as a destination.
Yeah.
Because of forward-facing sonar. Whereas in the past, like I grew up by fishing the St. Louis River. I used to go up there with my neighbors as kids, pulling roach rigs in the river, spinners, and catching walleyes that were ghost white, that were, 15 inches. And every once in a while you got a big one. But you always heard about all the big ones. And even back then, people were catching big fish.
Yeah.
But now you can target them.
Yeah, we're targeting them, I think, more effectively. Live Scope's made us all better at catching fish. If anyone's trying to preach that it doesn't make you better, that's a lie. Like, I'll be one of the first ones that's open as a Live Scope or openly admit it's made, all of us that have used it to its max potential better. But yeah, those big ones, I think a lot of it too is like, the social media exposure of like when to be in these places. Like people knew about them, but they'd go at a month that was just not when you were supposed. Like, for example, Green Bay on the lower side of it in June right now is one of the toughest bites in the country. We have a huge bait influx and it's really hard to fish it. So if you showed up back then in June and, you're like, wow, there's bait everywhere, but we couldn't catch them. And it's like, well, yeah, you should have been here in April, May, or in August. That's when, you come for the big ones. Like big fish are very, like, to me, at least nationwide, it seems like very windowy. I mean, like the prime opportune moments to catch them is a couple weeks here and then it's kind of dead for a while and then a couple weeks there.
Yep.
You can't just pull into, these fisheries and expect to go out there and have 10 fish that are giants. Right. If you're not there at the right time, that's a big thing. Timing, spots, that stuff. I think maps, all of our navionics, that's changed this industry more than anything. Everyone on their phone has instantaneous access to great structure. When I started, I mean, I'm not super old by any means, but like going from a paper map to navionics is like a huge jump, like in just information.
Well, and I think for me, it's not just forward-facing sonar, but it's forward-facing sonar coupled with the map, the conditions, whatever.
The knowledge.
How many times have you had it where you're like, oh, they're here, and then all of a sudden you pull up your map and you're like, there, and you end up going to those spots and you're like, they are there.
Yep.
Because it's like that light bulb goes off. It happens to me all the time. It happened to me when I was up on Lake Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I dropped the trolling motor down and I was like, you're on Lake Winnipeg. It's full of walleyes, carp, catfish, whatever. Right. It's just like being in Oahe or Sakakawea or Green Bay. But you start shining around and you see these fish up high. You're like, what are these things? And you're like, God, they look like walleyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you cast and like, boop, it is a walleye. And then all of a sudden you just widen out your map. And the first thing I do is like identify other locations that look exactly like
Yep. Map study.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We sit on maps a lot.
Yeah.
Lay in bed at
It's
night
like
and stare at maps all the time.
Tournament week. It's like, hey, come look at where I was. Do you see anything like this? Like where you were? Like all that. Like the maps are. I think I would give up live scope before I gave up my map.
Yeah, for sure.
If you really asked me at the end of the day, like if you had to just give me a live scope or a map, I think I'd almost take the map.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what puts you in the right spot. The live scope just helps you catch them once you get there.
That's right. Or just really makes you super mad that they're not biting.
That too. Super mad.
Super mad.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Obviously this tournament season so far, it's been very tough conditions. I know I've just been following a few of the NWTs with the cold weather, this spring, and it was just like less than ideal winds out in Erie and different places. Moving forward here, Beta Knock, this tournament on Mille Lacs included. Are there any bites you guys are looking forward to as we move into June? I know for me, I've talked about it extensively on this podcast. June is my favorite month, by far my favorite month. Unfortunately for me as a guide, I'm always like, oh, all my days are booked in June, when I want to be fishing somewhere else. Are there some locations that you're really looking forward to? And then when you get away from tournament fishing, because I know a lot of times, same thing as guiding, you get in that grind of like trying to figure out the bite for the tournament. But then when you're done, like, are there destinations you want to go to right now? You don't have to name any little lakes, but some bites that you want to get on for walleyes, for even other species where you're like, hey, I got to do that after this is done or whatever. Because I know in my mind, like lake trout are calling my name. There might be another trip to Lake Winnipeg in my
I don't blame you.
I literally got 3 over 31 in 2.5 days. We got 400 walleyes. We averaged 25-inch average.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I told my son, I'm like, even if we bonsai up there for like 2 more days, I can definitely squeeze that into something. But are there things that you guys are thinking about? Because for me as an angler, there's so many different bites. Lake trout fishing comes to my mind, where I'm like, I want to do that, but I just can't get there.
Yeah. We were kind of talking salt the other day.
Yeah, we started talking saltwater the other day, and like I really would like to go down and start scoping tarpon.
Yeah,
that would be super cool.
Yeah,
redfish and tarpon would be awesome.
Yeah, we were talking for us. Like, I mean, I'm so busy this time of year. It's like almost not an option to try to sneak a fishing trip into the middle of a tournament season. I know he's right there. He's doing 15, 20 events this year.
Yeah, I'm doing somewhere 25 events this year.
Yeah, I'm right at 20.
Yeah, that's
so
challenging.
we can't slip them in this time of year. I mean, bites I'm missing, man. I miss fishing Lake
of the Woods.
Lake of the Woods is when it's really good. Yeah. And then Lake Michigan, like kingfishing, any of the trout fishing out there, jigging salmon's pretty wild. Like if you can get on a good salmon jigging bite with the long rod, 7-8 foot. Even walleye rod tackle if you're in the boat. If you're from shore, we use longer rods, but that I miss big time. Rip jigging big fluke minnows for kings and that kind of stuff.
I just started getting into fishing cohos.
Yeah,
and fishing
cohos are a blast.
Yeah, in
throwing
the spring.
a crank in for a coho in the spring. Oh, dude, if you can find a good shallow like 10 to 20 foot coho bite on a crankbait where you can throw like something that dives to like that 8, dude, they'll come up 12 feet for it, smash it, rip the rod out of your hand. Like it's so fun. Like that's one of my favorites. I haven't done that one in 4 years, 3 years. Like it's been a while.
That's something that, I grew up salmon fishing and trout fishing, and it was fine. I don't mind trolling. My in-laws used to have a boat up on Lake Superior, so we'd go up there with my brother-in-law and the whole crew.
Sure.
But it was like making time to do that. It sort of fell by the wayside just because I don't have time. I used to go over to Waukegan and fish the spring cohos, and we'd troll and catch them like crazy.
Oh, it was insane.
But now with forward-facing sonar casting the cohos in the spring, I will never troll for them again.
Yeah.
It is so much fun, and they're so wild. I caught them on Crush City Plastics. I caught them on crankbaits. I caught them on spoons. And it was just like experimenting with different things. And they're so wild in the water column. And just, I could envision in my head back in the day when we were trolling, because your boards would be going back. Every line would be going nuts, right? When you hit that school. And now you see those schools and how big they are. And you're like, okay, I understand why every bait got back.
Like chaos ensued.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Same thing. Yeah, I mean, even trolling walleyes. Like, oh my God. Live scoping
Erie is just
the most insane thing. You're like, oh, wow, this is why you can't get 4 boards in the water.
Or get a big one, because the water's so clear. Sometimes you cast a bait and there's like 6 little ones coming from everywhere. Yeah. And you're like, please just let me get my bait down to this big one. And it's just crazy. Yeah.
Last November, I went out to Lake Erie to visit the guys out at Fish USA. And along the Pennsylvania-New York border, the lake trout slide into the shallow water. And so we were catching them on blade baits in like 15 to 20 feet. One of the funnest lake trout fishing I've ever had in my life, because it was so shallow. Yep. They're so aggressive. They would streak by so fast on live scope that you're like, I think that was a trout. Oh, that was a trout.
Barely see it.
Yeah. I mean, and a few times he's like, oh, just spot lock. And even with the spot lock, it's like back and forth. I'm like, oh, there's a trout. And I'd throw anywhere near that trout. Yeah. And they hit it. Well, on the way back to the harbor, I'm like, you got to let me fish walleyes out here and just cast. It was dead flat calm. He's like, oh, for sure. And scoping around that lake is absolutely insane. The amount, just the biomass of
that
fish
it holds is crazy.
There's never a time that you didn't see something, right? Whether it was walleyes or whatever. It was just thousands and thousands and thousands of fish, most of which are walleye schools. I can see why those charters are going out 2, 3, 4 times a day and just limiting it out like nothing, because the insane amount of walleyes in that lake, it's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually insane. And your brain really doesn't even comprehend that they're all walleyes sometimes. And it's so much fun. And the charters out that way are like, a lot of them are like, well, we're just going to go out and you put a live scope on the side of the boat and throw bobbers really quick. And those fish see it from 20 feet away. So you got to hit them perfect. And then they swim over, crush them, and they get their people their limits. So they go back in and get another crew and go do it again. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I know what.
Windmill and fish out there. I don't think you can hurt it.
No, you can't hurt it. There's way too many fish. It's insane.
I mean, they're commercially netting the Canadian side. The U.S. side is littered with boats every single day. The split second it's open. If the launches are open, those guys are there. The Erie guys are hardcore fishermen. They're tough guys. They're there in November for the brawl all the way up to ice.
Right on. Yeah. When I was out in Erie, they were talking about the brawl, and like,
oh yeah,
everybody's gearing up for that. Hey, before I cut you guys loose, I know you got a rules meeting here coming up. How did you two meet? How did you hook up? I know you guys are you guys fishing this tournament together? This
No,
one?
no.
No.
Okay. Just partnering up, hanging out at Nitty's.
Yep, pretty much.
Eating cheese curds.
Yep.
Always
George's
having fun.
food, you know, it's
Yeah.
hard. You're
It's
going
hard-
to
you
gain about
can't-
25
can't-
pounds when you come to Hunter's Point.
you-
I hope
Oh,
you
yeah.
know that, Isaac.
Yeah, you can't pass up on George's food, and the bar usually wins at the pull tabs. But other than that,
Yeah.
it's this is
We always try to have
this is
fun.
where we met.
Yeah, we
I
did.
met you here.
Yep.
That was the first time I ever met him. I was up here for
Head to head.
I think I met you that
Yep.
was when it was.
Head to head.
Yeah.
Okay.
I met him when I fished head to head. I came up here, we fished head to head in 21. We met, and then being relatively close to the same age and an industry that's really not that big, you just kind of gravitate towards the guys that you relate to and stuff like that. So
Yeah, definitely. And we talked a bunch and we had some fun, and then we were
Started
running around,
fishing some
started fishing
random
together, some
stuff.
random stuff, and then we just hit it off. And ever since then, we've been running around figuring out bites
all
together.
over the country.
That's cool. Yeah. That's what I love about fishing is, fishing is sort of that magnet where you end up meeting people. I'll be in an airport or on an airplane and somebody will see I'll have a Rapala hat on or something. You just start talking to that person. And next thing you know, you're friends with them. You're bumping into them.
Yep.
I know
seeing
there's
them different places,
Yeah.
making points of like, oh yeah, we're over here doing this. So come say hi.
Yep.
My wife gives me crap all the time because she's like, everybody, like, I'll get off the plane. I remember we got off the plane in Belize, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, Tony, how you doing? And the guy that I was talking to, I had just saw at Hunter's Point like 2 weeks before that.
Right,
and
right.
my wife's like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dude, I walk into tackle stores and stuff.
Oh, it's
and
nuts.
I struggle to get out. I bump into somebody I've met at some point.
It's fun to sit and talk to people
Yeah.
though, and it's a great world, and fishing world's awesome, and we're all good
yeah.
dudes, and we all love it, and we all love to just sit and talk about it, and that's all we really talk about.
Well, I tell you what,
fishing
next
and hunting.
Yep.
exactly, yeah. Fall we will
Yep.
not be talking
No.
fishing. It'll be
No.
all hunting.
Yep.
Yep. And then winter, we talk about how much we miss hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next winter, maybe we'll all be talking about live scope and tarpon together.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is
man.
definitely on my radar. Like,
Let's go.
It's another unexplored. Like, there's only a couple of people that I know from Minnesota. One of my buddies just bought a place down there, and he's like, "Hey, come down anytime. I'm getting a boat. I'm gonna have it rigged up. You can show me how to run the electronics." I'm like, "I'm in." I love snook fishing. I love tarpon fishing. And one thing about those guides down there, a lot of the saltwater guides. 2 years ago, we went and fished gay grouper with jerk baits, and we were twitching big swim baits. And I asked the guy, I said, "You don't have any forward-facing sonar?" And he's like, "Nah." He's like, "You just pull up to the reef and cast to him and catch them." And we were catching them, and nothing, no rip on that guy. He was an excellent angler.
Sure.
But just the experiences that he could have with his customers if he had a forward-facing sonar,
Just to
in it.
show them.
Even just on
It's
a
just
pole,
oh my
because he
God.
was spot
That's-
locking in the
yeah.
current. And I mean, they were hitting the swim baits and jerk baits so hard, and there were so many that I was like, I told my son, I'm like, if you could see how
was
many are
going
down
on
there,
down there.
it would just be
Blow
mind
your
blowing.
mind.
Yeah.
Like,
Be
Same with the
awesome.
tarpon, like, because when I see them and when you start fishing with forward facing and you see how many there actually are, it is absolutely mind blowing. Or even jacks,
Yeah.
I go down there with buddies and they could care less about catching jacks, right? You start getting into the jacks, they're like, all right, let's go find the snook, and I'm like, hey man, I've been drilling holes and like looking down an ice hole for 6 months. Let me just wail on these jacks on a jerk bait.
Yeah,
and,
I don't care
I'm totally
what I'm
fine.
catching right now.
Yeah.
If it's tugging on a long rod, I'm in.
Yeah,
Oh,
last year I was throwing top water for these jacks, and they were all over around these bridge pylons. There was thousands of them. And you're just like, bop, bop, bop. And they were coming up and like, bam, bam. There were so many hitting the surface that I'm like, let me just sit here and fish these for a while. So we sat there and whacked on them. And I'm like, man, if you had forward-facing sonar down, you could see what that looks like on a live scope. It would be just insanity.
It would be awesome.
So, salt is, I think, an untapped. I mean, there's a million guides
for being from where we are.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is like it's old hat for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Some of these guys that I fished with, all they run is a map. They don't even run their 2D
I
sonar.
think it's so good out there. I like salt is so underrated. I think because of like, okay, you think we can pressure this? You can't pressure oceans that are miles
Yeah, that's
and
just
hundreds
crazy.
of miles of open water. Like those fish, we don't understand the ocean. Well, we're starting to understand lakes. We do not understand the ocean.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
No, I mean,
Like-
I went tuna fishing up in New England.
Okay.
And same thing is like They drive around until they see the whales and the dolphins and the birds. And I'm sitting in the front of the boat, and this guy's like, "You smell that?" And I was like, "Yeah, what is that?" He's like, "That's bait." And I was like, "That's bait on." And you could smell the pungent bait.
Really?
Pretty soon we get up there and there's whales breaching and all over. And then we start catching tuna, you know. Can you imagine what that looks like on a live scope? You know, a whale.
I don't think Garmin makes something big enough for whales.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I know what sturgeon look like. I can't imagine what a whale looks like.
Oh, God.
He's so cool.
It's just the screen is
So
whale.
cool. Yeah.
Right on, guys. I know you got a rules meeting coming up here. Hey, thanks for sitting down with me. Isaac, it was good to get to know you on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I wish you guys the best luck. Hunter, we're always checking in with you to see how you're doing, buddy. You know, of course, I'm always at Hunter's Point, so I get to check in and see how you're doing throughout the season. I wish you the best of luck in this tournament on Mille Lacs. And then, of course, you know, when you head up to Beta Knock, I'll be checking in on both of you guys. We'd love to have you on the podcast in the future. Maybe we'll do one from Key West next winter.
That would be
podcast.
fun. That would be a fun way to do
I'll drive
one.
the boat.
Yeah,
we'll have scopes on either side on like Larmac 360s. And
Yeah,
then on the front.
yeah. My bank account feels it already. You don't need to sell me anymore.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hey, stay tuned. We got more dialed in angling after this. Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms. Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site full-service bar and restaurant. The two beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you're after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water. Okay, welcome back. I want to thank my guests, Isaac Lakich, and of course, Hunter Nitti, for their insights as far as what they've got going on, you know, the bites they've been chasing, the tournaments they've been fishing, and of course, they're out on Mille Lacs fishing hard right now. Speaking of Mille Lacs, I want to touch on Mille Lacs for a little bit before we get into the fishing reports. It's been pretty red hot, you know. Definitely bite windows in certain areas of the lake, and certain areas of the lake they want something other than they do in other areas of the lake is all I can describe it as. You know, a couple weeks ago when we talked to Bob Nitti, Tony Nitti, of course, all the guys that fished that classic bass walleye tournament on Mille Lacs, you know, just like then, you know, it seems like certain areas of the lake, they're feeding on one thing. You go to another spot, they're feeding on others. That's sort of the case now, although back then the surface temperatures were really cool. With this rapid warm-up, that's really accelerated things. It's moved fish into different areas, their mid-lake structures. Of course, the bobber bite has been the best for me, you know, from a guide's perspective. Bobber fishing has been pretty good because there's a lot of fish that are suspended up off the bottom. They're feeding on bugs. They're feeding on bait. I've seen some of the young of the year hatch that's out there. I'm not sure if they're perch or walleyes or what, but really tiny micro minnows that are up at the surface. And I'm seeing lots of walleyes and bass chasing those. I've seen a fairly good bait numbers shallow in different areas of the lake. And it seems like based on where you're at, whether it's north, east, south, or west, depending on how much bait is in the area, will depend on how good the bite is in that area, if that makes sense to you. Areas that have less bait, if you get into it, and it could just be a hump in an area where you just don't have a ton of bait around there, the bite's better than others. And so for me, I've been doing a lot of bobber fishing when I'm walleye fishing. As far as smallmouth bass, I've been still throwing jerk baits, swim baits in the morning, freeloaders, just kind of nose hooking those things and fishing them weightless up shallow. I've been doing really well in the mornings, kind of fishing it like a fluke, I guess you would say. And then as soon as the sun gets high in the sky or if the wind's blowing, I've been dragging neds and doing quite well. For the smallmouth bass, it seems like they're in varying stages of the spawn based on where you're at in the lake. Some areas, they're really bedded up still. Other areas, they're off the beds. They're chasing. I even got a couple on top waters the other day. So, things are happening. Things are moving in the right direction. When you get into June, I've said it many times in this podcast, June is such an electric time to fish all over the place. But Mille Lacs is one of those destinations that you got to hit at least once or twice in June just because it's such good fishing. Not just for walleye, smallmouth, northern pike, muskies, everything is biting this time of year. If you're coming up to the lake this weekend, I highly recommend, definitely putting the bobbers in. There's a lot of fish that are sliding out to mid-lake structures. There's a lot of fish on mud flats. There's a lot of fish on gravel bars. It's just finding those ones that are biting. There's a lot of locations that are not biting that well. There's other locations that seems like they're all biting. And so you can get plenty of keeper fish if you're looking for a few fish for a meal. If you're looking for those great big giants, some of those bigger fish are a little bit harder to track down, harder to catch. Isaac and Hunter, when they're chasing fish in this tournament this weekend, a lot of these tournaments are all catch, record, release, but they're going for their 5 biggest fish. Those can be a little bit more of a challenge, a little bit harder to catch. But again, for me, it just seems like the most consistent bite right now with the bait fish that are in the lake and with the bugs that are hatching and the way the fish are positioned, it's a really good slip bobber bite. So if you like watching a cork go down, put the slip bobber rods in the boat, tie on some Ned rigs, throw a couple jerk baits in the boat, even some Crush City plastics on jig heads, like neon moon eye jigs. I've been fishing those on a 1/4 ounce with a jerk and pitching those out and ripping those through the pods of fish and letting them dump to the bottom and catching lots of walleyes. So the time is now. June is here. Fishing is fantastic. We're going to cut to a bunch of really good fishing reports. I've got some insights from Leech Lake. Of course, in southern Minnesota, we're hearing good reports out of Brainerd, Trig Roach reporting in, and even talked to Marcus Quam out in South Dakota. Get a report from Marcus. Stay tuned. We got some fishing reports coming your way. A lot of great insight. June is here, and the fishing is red hot.
Hey, Josh Bullivant here for your Leech Lake fishing report. Currently, the walleye bite has been good to great right now. You're going to want to look in that 10 to 15 foot range. Find the mid-lake rock reefs or scattered boulder fields. Pitching jigs and a night crawler or jigs and a leech are my go-to methods right now. If you can still find some spot tail shiners, jig and a spot tail shiner. Also, slip bobbers have been working well with a leech or half a night crawler underneath of them. And making sure you're up a little bit above the bottom there for those fish, 2 to 3 feet above the bottom. And then also pitching crankbaits has been working good as well for those walleyes. It's a great peak walleye time. Water temperatures are in that 62 to 65 degree range. So that bite is definitely on. If you're chasing some smallies, that's another great option right now as the smallmouth bass fishing. You're going to want to look a little bit shallower, less than 10 feet. They're just getting off their beds. Some of them are still on them. But a jig and a plastic minnow right now, or a tube jig, or a chatterbait and your favorite minnow imitator has been working great. So peak fishing time right now. Bugs haven't quite hatched yet. Time to get out on lead.
What is going on, guys? Miles from MVP Guide Service coming at you from the Mankato, Waterville, Faribault area. Just checking in on June 10th. Guys, fishing has been incredible in southern Minnesota. I'm seeing water temps right around 78 degrees. Walleyes have been on fire, you guys. Now we've had to switch it up a little bit. Some of the shallower lakes are the bite's starting to die off a little bit. Water temps are getting really high, but I've switched over to the deeper, clearer lakes, and those have been just on fire. Weed line fishing, that's been king all the way around. I know I keep preaching that, but in southern Minnesota, the weeds are always king, guys. 10 feet and less, typically. Pitching crawlers, pitching the worm walker by Kalen's, and also the VMC snitch jig. That's been kind of the rotation for the worms. 3/16, 1/8 ounce, sometimes quarter if it's a little windy. But just kind of mixing it up and finding active pods of fish. We'll run down the weed line. You find a little inside turn or a point, and you'll see the fish stacked up, and that's been pretty solid. As far as the crappies and the sunnies, I'm seeing the sunnies on beds pretty hard. So we're just using the side scan, firing up the side scan, find the beds, and I'm typically pitching a drop shot on there with a piece of beaver tail or a night crawler. That's been the go-to. As far as the crappies go, I'm finding them on weed lines. Sometimes they're dribbling out from the weed edge. We're casting little small minnow baits or paddle tails 2-inch, using a 16th, sometimes a little bit heavier than a 16th ounce jig if it's windy. And that's been kind of the key. Even like today, crappies, they were not off the weed edge, but they were inside of the weeds. So we had to swim the jigs over top of the weeds to get those fish to come out. And they were actually exceptionally hard to see on the forward-facing sonar. So just keep a couple of those things in mind and hope that helps you guys out. If you want to hit me up for a guided trip, 507-236-2027 or MVP Guide Service on Facebook. Thanks, guys. And thanks for including me, Tony. Appreciate it.
What's going on, guys? Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service with an Otter Tail County fishing report. Fishing around here has been amazing. Walleyes, crappies, bass, northerns, they've all been biting pretty well, pretty predictable locations. We're catching a lot of fish in that first set of cabbage that's popping up. Most lakes right now are just starting to show a really good cabbage boom, and everything is kind of attracted to it. So cabbage is a great bet. A lot of what we've been doing is pitching in jigs of plastics and kind of ripping through the cabbage, or we've been tossing out jerk baits and ripping that through the cabbage, as well as doing slip bobbers and leech and some jigs and crawlers and some of that other stuff as well. So not terribly picky. Most of the fish we're finding are eater schools are kind of schooled up in a pretty big pod, and the bigger fish are kind of hanging around the edges and in and out of those cabbage weeds. So on the panfish front, we're finding a lot of our crappies right now kind of on that first break in that fresh cabbage, kind of in that 6 to 12, 6 to 15 feet. And we're getting those pulling little thumper jigs or any kind of a small little jig with a twister tail on the back. 1 mile an hour over those weeds with a 16th ounce jig. That's money right now. A lot of fish getting caught, pretty easy to find them. If you do find a big pod, you can always pitch on them. So fishing's firing off really good right now. If you guys want to get in the water with me in the Otter Tail Lakes area, you can give me a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can find us at lockjawguideservice.com.
Trig Roach with TR Guide Service here in the Brainerd Lakes area. Walleye fishing is really good right now. We got water temps in the mid to low 70s. Been catching most of our walleyes in that 12 to 16 foot of water range. Slip bobber and a leech has been working really well. Same with a jig and a crawler, using 1/2 to 3/4 of a crawler, either with a black or a gold jig head, an 1/8 ounce. Pitching them up on new growth cabbage, slow rolling them back, letting the bobbers kind of float, slow rolling the jig and a crawler back on top of the weeds, on the edge of the weeds. That has been catching most of our walleyes. Seeing some fish off deep, chasing suspended bait piles. So if you have forward-facing sonar, you can pitch a jig and a crawler, or a jig and a leech has been working well on those groups of fish chasing the bait, and we've been getting some bigger fish doing that. This is Trig Roach. We'll see you in the next one.
Okay, that's a wrap for this week's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you got some insight into, some background on Isaac and, of course, Hunter Nitti. Those guys are chasing tournaments. They're chasing walleye bites all over the Midwest and really all over the country right now. I know both of them are chasing down all sorts of different bites and tournaments and having fun doing it. What a couple of great guys, great guides, and hopefully you got some insight on how they go about fishing different fisheries, and Hopefully you got some great fishing information from all our weekly contributors. I want to say special thanks to all the guys that report in each and every week to give you good fishing reports, good fishing information to keep you dialed in. So that's a wrap for me this week. Good luck fishing. Enjoy June while it's here. Before you know it, it'll be 4th of July and the summer will be speeding by. So don't let it pass you by. Get out there and enjoy the outdoors. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach, and this has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.